Alright, hello everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Today's video, we are talking about how in these last 2 or 3 weeks, I have essentially burned my entire planner system to the ground and how I have decided to rebuild it going forward. And I don't want to make it too dramatic. I don't want to make it any more serious than it needs to be, because at the end of the day, it's not that serious. And these past 60 days, I've gone through a lot of life changes. And I would say that my life looks very differently now than it did, 60 days ago. And so with that comes changes in the tools that I use to organize my life and my work and things like that. So the last video I showed you guys, I believe it was my 1 month update in my Hobonichi cousin. This is a stack of books that I have been using for the past 2 or 3 weeks. And so I'm gonna walk through this chronologically. If you would like to just see the flip through to the book that I am using now moving forward, I will put the timestamp on the screen right now. But if you would like a little bit more context and I guess a talk through about how I came to my decision and how I worked through my planner hopping process, then just you can stay here. But to start off, we'll start with my cousin. And sorry for the sticking noise. I ripped off the cover that I had taped on here for some reason. I don't remember why I did, so there's like tape on here still. But this was the cousin that I showed you guys in my last update video. I think I mentioned it in the video multiple times. Like, I love the cousin. I felt really at home in here. It felt great to be back. It's a book that feels both very like comfortable and cozy to me, but also gives me a lot of room and freedom to experiment a little, which I think I definitely stepped outside of the box and experimented with my weeklies a lot more than I had previously when I was in the cousin. And so, I don't know, overall I was having a fine experience in here. And then this is when we started tailoring off, and this was right before the start of my new job. So if you don't know, I recently got a new job, and with all the other changes that I went through in March and April, I had my surrogate baby, we moved a house in the same week, I stopped maternity leave, I went back to work, and then I put in my 2 weeks, and then I went into a new job. So it was a lot of changes happening in a very short amount of time. And I think I mentioned in my last video, like, I know that these changes are happening, and with that might come me wanting to restructure how I organize all these new things in my life. And that definitely hit me that weekend before I started my new job, because I looked at this book and I was really thinking like, crap, like, I don't think I want to take this cousin into my work. And my new job is very much like very, not corporate, but I would say it's like corporate enough. And I'm in a lot of rooms with a lot of very important people, or people who feel like they're very important sometimes too. And I was really nervous that if I took this cousin into the office and it just so happened to be like open up in my cube one day and, you know, a VP walked by, like, how does that reflect on me professionally? And it doesn't really, I don't know, I've never really cared much for the opinions of others, but with something as personal as my Hobonichi cousin, I just didn't feel super comfortable with having this big book with me for work and for my personal. So I started trying to think of alternatives, and I think one of you guys actually mentioned the Wonderland B6 as a workbook because one of you had used it. And so I ended up purchasing one, and I was going to stay with my cousin for everything in my personal life and managing my time pretty much the same that I usually did. And then I was just going to use this for work. It's very slim, it's a B6 size, and it has a really cool setup in where the weekends are stacked and you really just focus on the work week. And it had a lot of these annual spreads with it that worked really well for my job, because since I work for the Olympic and Paralympics, we always work on a quad. I have Frankenstein this, like, please ignore how crazy this is gonna get. we always work in this like quad cycle. So this is kind of a bad example because I've truly destroyed this thing. But this planner had a lot of really awesome annual spreads that I thought would work really well for my job. I purchased this skinny one, and I think I used it the first week at my new job. And I did some experimenting and I tried to figure out how I wanted to use this and I don't know, make it work. I started flying through the notes pages, and I think all of these pages right here were within like 3 days maybe. And so after I took all these notes, I was like, crap, like if I'm going through this many notes this quickly, I don't think this is gonna last me like the rest of this year. And granted, now that I reflect on it, I know I'm taking a lot of notes right now because I'm in a new job and I have a lot to learn right now. So I know this isn't going to be the case forever, but I just had like a mini panic attack and I was like, wait, I'm going to run out of room really quickly. And then I'm like, what am I going to do for notes? So I decided to get the larger version of this book, which is this guy. And it has a significantly larger amount of notes pages. And I thought, okay, that would be great. And because it has so many pages, I think that I like this book so much that I'm going to turn it into my everything book. And I'm just going to block off all of my personal pages and I'm going to clip them. So when I'm in the office, it's only my notes pages and all my work stuff that's kind of visible, I guess. And I got both of these, I think, or at least I know I got this one during their spring sale. So I think this one I got for like maybe $25 or something around there. These books also have the old Tomoe River paper. So that really attracted me to this book. I pretty much set up all my pages. I just backlogged the monthly calendars and then the weeklies from like April on. And then my first official work week in here was this one. Yeah, this one right here. So everything in red is work specific, and then everything in black is my more personal like daily logging and notes. And then I really like using Saturday and Sunday over here as my to-do list. It's something that I did in my cousin in the past. I don't really like writing in the weekends, so I like using that space for to-dos. Started using this and I was in here for 2 weeks and then I started to question everything again. I had a lot of work overwhelm and a lot of imposter syndrome, and my second week I just felt so overwhelmed, I think. And I just feel like I'm so behind and there's so much information for me to learn, and I want to be really good at my job, and it's really frustrating for me in the beginning when I'm not super good at something, even though I know like I'm just now starting and it's pretty much like it's just normal to like learn. And so it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to rationalize that with myself in the moment now that I am kind of out of that overwhelm and anxiety I was feeling. I know where my discontent with this book, I know why it started to feel the way that it did. And so because I was feeling very, very strong feelings about being overwhelmed, this felt very big and intimidating to me. And I just had like 2 work things, I would say, that happened that like really, I don't know, stressed me out. So like here's one page where I just put, you can do this, over and over and over, because I was just so anxious about, I don't know, looking dumb is the best way that I can explain it. And I think because of this overwhelm, I wanted even more control because it was something that I felt I was really lacking. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to change my planner. This feels like a lot right now, and something with this is not working for me. And I don't really think it was the book necessarily. There was one instance where I did have this book on my desk. Someone had walked by and noticed it, and they made a comment about it. And I won't say the comment, but it like, that one comment about my book like just gave me the immediate ick after. And now every time I look at this book, I just think about that comment that was made. And so it like immediately turned me off. And so I think that, in a combination with all the anxiety I was feeling, just really like turned me off from this. So because I was feeling so much overwhelm and I wanted that control, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm feeling like I'm in the A6 mood because it's a small size, it's really small and contained, and I feel like I can control these really big feelings that I'm having with a really small book. And the normal Hobonichi Techo doesn't work for me because it doesn't have weeklies, and the Avec doesn't work for me because of those same reasons. So I thought to myself, I could get a Day Free Avec, or I'm sorry, I could get a Hobonichi Day Free, and I could draw in weekly pages and then use whatever leftover pages I had for any daily journaling or notes I wanted to do. So this one's gonna look a hot mess again too, because I am still using this as like a tool for myself a little bit. But I went in here, I backfilled the monthlies, and I will say, like, as soon as I backfilled these, I hated it. I hated how it looked, and I hated how claustrophobic it felt, which is so funny because I feel like me sizing down was a way for me to feel like I was in control. And then as soon as I sized down, I was like, wait a second, like, I don't want that. And so I did backfill those monthlies, and then I went through and I set up weekly spreads for the rest of the year. And these are in these are in pretty much the exact same style as the weeklies in the B6 Wonderland. I don't know if I said that. This is the Wonderland 222 planner. But I basically went in and set up identical weeklies because I did really enjoy those weeklies and how they were functioning for me. So I set up, I believe, 32 weeklies in here because at the time that's how many weeks were left in the year. And I told myself, okay, great, this is going to become my new everything book. I have my monthlies, my weekly section, and then I have dailies here in the back. And it's going to feel a lot more manageable during this transition period. And if you can see, I wrote down some feelings. I wrote down that I'm feeling very overwhelmed, and I literally made it one day in here in this one journaling spread before I was like, there's absolutely no way this is going to work for me long term. I already know this is not going to be sustainable for me. I think a short-term want overpowered a long-term need for me. And I think having a couple days to just calm down and stop freaking out about not knowing what I'm doing and just being new at a job, I think that A6 is just not for me. I don't think. I so badly want to be an A6 girly. I love the A6 covers. I love the small, short compactness of an A6, but every single time, as soon as I get in here, it feels like I can't breathe. And so I think this is my third time, I want to say, trying the A6 size, and I think now I'm like officially done. It's going to take a lot for me to ever try this again because I didn't even make it past 2 days before I had to stop. And when I left this book, I left it on Wednesday the 21st. I haven't been in a planner since. So it's been about like 5 days-ish now, 4 or 5 days maybe. I don't even think I was in it on Tuesday. I think this was backfilled. I've just been surviving off of like sticky notes and random notebooks this past week because I just told myself that I needed to take a step back and just chill out for a second and like really evaluate what I think I want and need for long-term goals, both personally and professionally. I didn't want to take too long of a time to wait before trying to find another solution because I am someone who functions I'm very dependent, I would say, on my paper planner and my journaling to just help me function daily. And so I really reflected on all these previous books and the things that I could take away from each one of them and what I know about myself to be true. So I know I need room to breathe. And right now I'm really wanting a smaller, more manageable, compact size. It's just how I'm feeling. I love the cousin so much, but I think in trying to do a page per day, even though I'm not forcing myself to write in these pages and I'm giving myself this empty space and this empty room, I think there is a background pressure on me still. And it's interesting because when I look back at my 2023 cousin, which I will grab, I always refer to this guy. He is so chunky and disgusting at this point. But when I refer back to my journaling in here, I always contemplate on like why this worked out so well for me and I never felt very overwhelmed in here versus the past year where it's been different. And I think it truly is just because I ignore the dates. In this cousin example, like I just wrote whenever I felt like it. And some days I would do like some sort of delineating mark that it was like the next day and I was writing. And sometimes I wouldn't. Or if there was a date specific thing that was really important to me that I wanted to note for reference later, I actually wrote the date down. But like for a majority of this book, I did not care about the date that I was writing. I don't even care that it's legible because I can't read any of this. And I rely very heavily on the pictures to kind of pinpoint me where in time I was when I was doing a lot of these. And that worked very well for me. These pages are ugly, they're not ugly, but like a majority of them I don't necessarily like or I think are aesthetically pleasing. But this is the book, I think, that, I don't know, it just feels flexible and I think inspiring for me, maybe a little bit. And I didn't use all of my journaling pages, and I used the space back here like a designated, really, really messy note space in here in the back. And I didn't even use all of these pages. Like, I think there's a pretty good amount of blank pages back here. But there's also a pretty good amount of these like very messy notes. And I think just having those spaces separated but together in one book works best with my brain. Whereas in this cousin right now, I'm trying to mix the two and it's not working functionally as well as I was hoping it would. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. But if I can change that and if I can tweak it to work better for me, then I definitely want to. And so I know that I don't need all of these pages because even in the cousin I was writing in a ton. I didn't use them all. And I want to not feel super limited in the ephemera that I can post in here or tip in here. Like, I think a lot of fears that we have is that the book is going to get like too chunky too quickly and then you're going to have this like brick sitting on your desk all the time. I think that's definitely like a background fear in the cousin. And so in these past 4 days when I was just thinking about next steps forward, I took all this information from all these books and previous experiences and what I know to be true and what I really want for myself, both right now and future Tori. And I made a decision. Don't know how long it's gonna stick because I never want to pigeonhole myself into using one book, obviously. Knock on wood that I'm done with life-changing events for hopefully a foreseeable future. I don't plan on having any kids or moving anytime soon. Or getting a new job. And so I am hoping now that I am on the come down of this really high of life changes, that this new book will be a lot more sustainable for me in the long run and I can be a lot more consistent with her, because I don't love planner hopping in the sense that I don't like having to set up things a million times. I like having all of my information and all my journaling consolidated if I can. It's not the end all be all for me, but if I could just stay in one book for a little bit, for at least longer than 3 months, I think that would be really good for me. And I'm not penalizing myself for not staying in a book because, again, I have gone through so much big life changes that I think if I would have forced myself to stay in a book, it would have hurt me a lot more than it helped me. So with all of that said, this is where I'm thinking moving forward. And again, we will see how it turns out. But I think my intentions are good and my logic is good enough that it's going to work. And that is the Hobonichi A5 Day Free. Now, for me, at least right now, I am calling this my Day Free Avec. And my thought for this is that the exact same thing that I did in the A6, I wanted to set up weeklies in here because I know I have to have these for my functional planning. My thought is to have 2 of these books a year, and I set up weeklies for half of the year. So there's 26 weeklies, and in the Hobonichi Day Free, you get 171 pages, I believe. Yeah, 171. So if I use 26 pages for my weeklies, that basically gives me 150 blank daily pages to use for a half a year, which equals out to about 1 page every like 2 to 3 days, which is kind of perfect for me because that is definitely the pace that I was doing in my 2023 Hobonichi cousin. What I have done in here is I've backfilled all of my monthly calendars just so I could have all this information. These pages are perfect for me, so I am always very sad when I move out of Hobonichi and I move into a new book that has like very good monthlies, but they're just not the same. Like they just don't hit the same for me, and they're still beautiful and lovely, but like these will always be my, I don't know, my standard, my golden standard. So I did go through here and I backfilled all my monthlies, which didn't take a whole lot of time. And then after all of my monthly sections, I set up 30 weekly spreads because there are 30 weeks left in the year starting this upcoming Monday. So I went in and I drafted weekly spreads that mimicked the ones I really liked in the B6, the ones that I put in my A6 book. And I have stacked the weekends because again, I don't need these weekends in their own column. They don't work for me very functionally like that. And I like stacking them because I can just use them as a to-do list for both my personal and my work stuff. And then by stacking them, you get a lot more room of these vertical columns compared to the cousin. So I'll pull it up again. So like here, if you look on this one, like here is the size of the cousin vertical column versus this one. So you just get a lot more room to breathe, even though it is the same size page essentially. And I'm someone who really likes the quotes. Something that I really, really love about the Day Free is that the color is the same throughout the whole book. So it's like this dark blue navy color, and I really, really love that color. I don't love how the daily colors back here change. I kind of hate all the red ones. Like if it's red, orange, anything of that color, like I have a really tough time with it. These other colors, I don't mind too much. Like August is my favorite, obviously, because it's like the dark blue. But everything else I'm kind of like about. And I think in certain periods of my life, I really like the quirkiness of the different colors, but I'm not liking that right now. So the one consistent color throughout the whole book is really nice for me. And I feel like it gives me a little breathing room to do my own art and not feel held back by the color palette that's already in the paper. So I set up all these weeklies. I'm not someone who loves my handwriting, so like writing in the days of the week I think might annoy me, so I might look into like some stickers or something. It's not the end of the world, but I don't know, that'll be something to figure out later. They're not perfect by any means. If you're curious onto what I used in here, I basically used my Winsor and Newton. This is 0.3 in the cool gray color. I think it matches the color in here like pretty spot on, honestly, and it's also waterproof. So you can highlight over it, you can watercolor over it, and these lines will not smudge, which is great. And then anytime I made a mistake, which there are plenty in here, I just used this Posca paint pen to white out the lines. And that's basically all I used to set these up. It did take me a few hours, I will say, but it was a little bit, I don't know, meditative, I guess I could say. And it makes me feel very invested into this book because I've already spent a few hours like just putting in the actual layouts. I think it would be really nice for me to have 2 of these books per year because then I get that micro win of completing a whole book, and I get 2 books in 1 year, so I get to start fresh, which I do really like doing. And I get to customize my weeklies to just work for me a lot better. And then I still have enough pages in the back for my daily, or not even daily, but like my journaling and messy notes if I want them to. And something that I did kind of on accident, which I actually really like, is that I did I guess I could call it like a weekly journaling session instead of doing like a day on one page. This past week, living off of sticky notes, I just started collecting the ephemera and pictures that I knew I would want to put in my book eventually, but I just didn't. And when I was setting up this book, I thought, instead of focusing on one page for journaling, why don't I make it like a weekly thing? And I can throw in all of my ephemera or pictures, stickers from the week, and then I can just go in and do small journalings about them and talk about my week that way. And if there's any separate instances when I'm just wanting to like write out my feelings for the sake of writing out my feelings, I can still do that. But I kind of like the idea of these weekly reflection pages, I guess you could say. And I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off of myself from making like beautiful journaling spreads that like are cohesive and have good composition and like all of these things that are, I don't know, in the back of my brain. And I think because I am a creator on YouTube, I kind of have to think about those things. If I didn't make videos for the internet, I probably wouldn't care as much. I think I definitely would. She's feeling planner confusion. But because I am on the internet and this is kind of a job for me, like I always want things to be aesthetically pleasing for you guys, but I don't want it to run me into the ground, like stressing out about it. So this was this journal spread for this week, and I'm gonna kind of take the same ideas and apply it to next week. And if there's days where I'm like, nope, I just want to write about my entire day, I want to use up all the space to just talk about my day, I will. But I really like the idea of doing these, at least for right now, while I'm feeling a little stressed out at work or just overwhelmed a little bit. And then when things start to settle down and I have more room in here to just, I don't know, do a day per page if I want, I can, but I don't feel that pressure to. Something that I also think is very beneficial for me right now is the small compact size. Because it is small, I feel like I can throw in whatever ephemera I want and this book is not going to be too chunky. And I actually think like the more that I throw in, the like more perfect size it's going to get. And so the compact size right now is really making me feel less overwhelmed in terms of just like, I don't know, like intimidation of this book. But it's also a benefit because I feel like I can just paste in or tip in literally whatever I want, and it's not going to make a huge difference in this feeling like a brick. So that is my thought. I wanted to wait until I had this book filled out a little bit more, like 2 or 3 weeks before I showed it to you guys, because I don't love, I don't know, talking about how I'm going to use a book before I actually like use the book. But if I did do that, you guys probably wouldn't have gotten a video out from me for like another 3 weeks. And I think it's definitely very important to just be like clear and transparent about these changes when they happen, because I think when we try to hide planner hopping sometimes it can feel very shameful and then other people can feel the same way. And I want to normalize planner hopping. If I could create a hashtag to go viral in the planner community, it would be normalize healthy planner hopping, which is kind of a mouthful, but like I didn't want to, I don't know, I want to be clear and honest about this stuff as I go through it, because I know I'm not the only one and you guys have messaged me and told me similar things. And I will say, if you are interested in seeing these changes happen like in real time, I definitely suggest joining my Patreon channel, because my patrons have seen me kind of cycle through these books the past 2 or 3 weeks. And so you can definitely get a lot more in-time updates from me then, instead of like this like whiplash I feel like that can sometimes happen on YouTube. So I do apologize for any whiplash you might be feeling from my last cousin video to now changing again. I never want it to feel like that for you guys, but it is, I don't know, hard for me to work out things for myself in the moment and also make content for YouTube. Like sometimes I just need to do it in the background, and then once I feel settled, I can better articulate myself and explain myself, because I'm kind of like out of the woods a little bit. So I'm really excited about this book. I think it feels really good to me right now, which I say about every book, but a lot of the stress and overwhelm that I was feeling specifically has kind of eased a little bit now that I have a plan and I have this like blank canvas, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I feel like the Day Free planner is very underrated. It definitely takes a lot of work if you want to add in your weeklies, but I think the payoff is definitely worth it. And I still love having the quirkiness of the Japanese quotes, but not the dates up in the corner. Like, I think that's, you kind of get the best of all the worlds in here. So that's where we're at right now. I'll probably see you guys in a couple weeks with this guy filled out a little bit more. And I'm gonna keep tweaking things, keep experimenting like I always do, just to see how I can make this tool work best for me. But that's where we're at right now. And I'm really happy. I like burned my planner system to the ground. It's not always ideal, but I think I'm coming out on the other side of it a lot more prepared and just overall feeling a lot more like joy and relief from my decision. So thank you guys for being here and for watching. If you have questions on anything, please let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.